This is Montana Farmers Union Lunch and Learn podcast, hosted by me, Jody Cutterba. Montana Farmers Union supports its members through education, legislation, and cooperation. This bi-weekly production will help you stay informed and connected to current agriculture issues, news, and events. Hi, I'm Jody Cutterba, the Education Associate for Montana Farmers Union. Grab some lunch and let's get right into our episode, Advocating for Agriculture. It is important that people in the agriculture industry tell their stories. Our nation's ability to produce its own food supply efficiently, safely, and profitably depends on the preservation of the American farm family and the rural way of life. Rachel Prevost, the Montana Membership Director, said this at a board meeting in the summer of 2024.
Our members are amazing people. Like I say that all the time, but we have members who are amazing and doing innovative things that they're just so open and welcoming to us as staff to share their stories that we can advocate for them.
Let's take a closer look at why we need to tell the story, how to tell the story. And here's some examples from some of the Montana Farmers Union ambassadors and staff. The Montana Farmers Union organization took root as homesteaders arrived and farmers and ranchers discovered the necessity of getting together in one common cause. It was believed that the desire for a profitable market for the products of the farm or ranch could best be accomplished by real cooperation. As the organization expanded around the state, slowly a definite pattern developed whereby local ideas and local needs were channeled through county organizations to the state organization. It was from all the local and county ideas, discussions, debates, agreements, and resolutions that the state organization developed its annual program. That still remains the practice today, making the Montana Farmers Union a true grassroots organization. There are several ways that you can get your voice heard. Being a part of an agricultural organization like Montana Farmers Union, youth organizations like FFA and 4-H, and commodity groups. Of course, you can talk to your neighbors and communities at the store, at the diner, and even across the fence. You can craft your story and have a couple of formats ready to go as you are prepared when the opportunity to advocate presents itself. You can talk to elected officials, agency staff, especially with the annual convention and Montana legislative sessions coming up. Now, many people, especially farmers and ranchers, claim that they're not an expert. People do not give credit to the story they have to tell. Other people are unsure where to start or what to focus on. Your story does not have to be anything fancy. It just has to be yours. You absolutely can refer to projects, materials, examples that have led you to where you are, but you do not have to give statistics or details or references. The best stories are those that are relatable and told from the heart. Today, we're going to discuss how to build your elevator pitch. What's an elevator pitch, you ask? Well, the Career Services at Harvard says that an elevator pitch is a brief summary of who you are and what you do. It got its name because you have the length of an elevator ride, approximately 30 seconds, to convince a person to keep listening to you. Now, the first thing you need to know is that your story and the work you do in your community has power. You will have the most impact if you're prepared for on-the-spot remarks and opportunities to share your mission, your family's mission, your farm's mission, your farm's story, and even your own personal story, which are all essential to advocating and lobbying. Be prepared with an elevator pitch that you work on consistently. Refresh your story every once in a while. It's a great way to feel confident in your communication and reach people effectively. It's all about working in and showing up in the brave space. It can be hard to get out in your community, but with some preparation and practice, you can make a difference in your community and feel confident doing so. When we step up and lead, we inspire others to get involved too. We're going to listen to a few introductions. The setting of the introductions was casual at the Arrow Peak Camp on a Saturday morning at the end of June. The group was staff and board members of Montana Farmers Union. Each person was asked to tell who they are, what they do for Montana Farmers Union, and why. Listen to each of their stories. They insert their personality, tell a joke, refer to a funny or impactful moment, and make themselves real. They relay their experiences so others in the room can relate. And they project their passion for Montana Farmers Union.
So I'm Rachel Primo, I'm the Membership Services and Government Affairs Director. I've been at Farmers Union for 3.5 years, coming up on 4 at the end of this year. Crazy how fast time flies. I didn't get a lobbyist, and I was like, sure, give it a try. So I lobbied the 2021 session, stayed on board, and then I worked at the camp in the 2021 summer, and then came back kind of into the office role, stayed in government affairs work, and then our membership director had moved on, was moving on at that point, and so I stepped into the membership role. And then we began to develop the ambassador program, and a variety of other kind of programs that we do for members. I really enjoyed my time at Farmers Union, and I've gotten to do such neat and cool opportunities like DC fly-ins and going to conventions and really meeting. So I do come from a family farm ag background. My family raises cow-calf operation in eastern Montana and small grains as well. I don't know if I ever anticipated that I'd come back into agriculture after I went to school in college, but you know, the world works in weird ways, and I'm really grateful to be back in this industry.
Hello, everyone. I'm Skylar Williams. I was born in Havre. I moved to Billings when I was about 5. I come from the Rocky Boy Reservation. And my first brush with Farmers Union was I was running for Congress in 2022, and the primaries didn't go my way. And I got a call from Walter introducing me to this ambassador program. He's running. My first day was our convention in Helena in 2022. And so just shaking everyone's hands, and I was like, okay, I'm going to remember all of this. I didn't remember any of that. But I do not have a background in agriculture. The closest thing is probably my grandpa and my uncle. They built barns like eastern Montana and North Dakota. But outside of that, I just didn't really have a background in it. And it wasn't really taught in like Billings public schools. And that's been one of my angles that I'm really trying to work on, is to get some type of ag education in the classroom. If you're able to make those connections with people, like I've been in that same spot, you know, I'm not in ag, it doesn't concern me, but if you eat, it concerns you.
I'm Carissa McNamara. And I was born and raised in a small town in Utah. My grandpa was a miner, and my dad was a timber and a mining guy, and had cattle and a lot of land, and lost it in the 80s. And growing up, the big message from him to me was, don't stay on the farm. Go get your education. You know, passion and drive was really to, lead up to his expectations and get off the farm and get off the mountain. So I came back to Utah, met my husband, and he had a ranch. He had a custom hay operation, raised alfalfa and cattle. And our dead end dirt road that we lived on, they put in a new hospital, and built the McMansions up on the mountain, and the doctors wanted to shave 15 minutes off their commute. So they punched that dead end dirt road through and saved their commute time. But it just grew and grew and grew. And so before we came here, the county surveyor had come by and they wanted to do an I-15 interstate expansion project. And his survey tape landed 35 feet in our living room. And so that's what brought us to Montana. We wanted to be somewhere where there was a lot of support for agriculture and small family farms in rural communities. Came across women's conference, and I was tired and beat up. We had kidded like 27 goats in January. It was just ridiculous. And walked into women's conference, and I called my husband that night and said, we're just going to advocate for agriculture for the rest of our lives, no matter what it takes. And he said, I totally agreed. And he doesn't like me outright ever. And so for him to support that was just a huge, huge deal. I think grassroots is the fabric of community, and this organization is so relevant because there's a deep desire for community where people don't even realize that they need it. But, knowing that this organization will be here when they realize that they need it and how important it is going to be instrumental.
My name is Mary Jenny, and I've been on board with Montana Farmers Union. It'll be 2 years this November. My family moved to Montana from Switzerland in the late 1800s. Three brothers moved from Switzerland and moved into central Montana and started in agricultural. We raised cattle and hogs and some grain and hay. And I live on my family's property that has been in our family since the late 1800s. I grew up in an agricultural family. My mom and dad raised white-faced Herefords. When I graduated from high school when I was 18, I was like, I'm never, ever, ever. Ever. And I didn't until I met them. Started dating, I was pretty excited about getting back into ag because it was like, kind of my roots. And then COVID hit and I saw that the supply chain was broken. And I have family and friends all over talking about the prices in the grocery store and how they couldn't get food for their families. And I'm like, why aren't people buying from the local producer? And I just couldn't get it. And my friends were like, well, we don't know how. I'm like, well, why don't you just let them talk to me? Like, we can help you out. And they're like, we just don't know how to do that. So that's when I created my business called Montana Lamb and Beef. And it's a direct to consumer business. And I used the Petersons beef and lamb to get my business started to start supplying our central Montana area with animal proteins. And it's been pretty successful in that aspect of teaching people how to do that. And I really like to advocate for farm to table, supporting local producers. And that's gone really well. Since I've been on board with Farmers Union, and it's been really, really wonderful getting to know all of these other producers outside of my home area and advocate for agriculture in some capacities I actually never thought I was going to do. Education is my favorite. And then, of course, the cooperation is I'm involved as much as I can with some talking to people about co-ops, and then the legislative part. I never like to talk politics, but I'm becoming a lot more passionate about it the more I become involved in Montana Farmers Union.
Let's look at some of the nuts and bolts to build your elevator pitch. What are the 4 steps you should use to build your story? Who, why, us, and call to action. Step 1, who are you? You need to tell what's your name? What do you do? What's your farm name? What do you grow? Be prepared with the basics. Step 2 is finding your why. Developing and finding your why. Depending on the role you're developing for this, your why can look different for different roles. You might use the answer to the following questions to establish your why. What moves you emotionally, moves you to action, moves you to take charge, maybe even makes you angry? What stories move you? What gets you to take action? What makes you jump out of bed every morning? What has moved you and when to act on this why before? Think about those questions and develop, why are you telling your story? Step 3, finding the us to establish your audience. The us refers to who you're talking to, who you want to reach. Who is the us you want to reach? Who do you think resonates with your why and would want to join you in caring about your why? The us is who you are going to be talking with. Step 4, what's your call to action? What do you want to do with your why? What are you asking others or the us to do with your why? This elevator pitch format, who, why, us, call to action, can be in a short 30-second piece, and probably should also be worked into a longer, maybe up to 5 minutes, when you get to really share your work or passion with someone. The elevator pitch is developed when you have a chance to speak with someone about who you are and what you do. You can share stories, anecdotes, and experiences. People can relate to your joys and your heartbreaks. These stories can also be told in writing. A good letter to the editor or letter to support or refute legislation will contain the same elements to help communicate why you are passionate. I was asked to introduce myself in the grassroots and wrote my first field notes for the Montana Farmers Union magazine. I've also written a letter to the editor to introduce myself to Cascade and Teton counties in the local papers. Each of these gave me a chance to write an expanded elevator pitch. I'm going to share with you basically my letter to the editor. I'm Jody Cutterba, a wife, mother, grandmother, and concerned citizen. I've been a high school agriculture teacher for 29 years in Pennsylvania, Great Falls, and Sims. After spending 46 years in formal education, I finally graduated high school. I'm still not sure what I want to be when I grow up. I've decided to retire from the classroom, but not from my love of agriculture, education, and the people who make the industry tick. I'm the new education associate and ambassador for Cascade and Teton counties for Montana Farmers Union. I work out of the Great Falls office. Joining the staff at Montana Farmers Union feels like a good fit that will allow me to continue to provide valuable and necessary educational experiences for people in and about agriculture. I'll continue to advocate for agriculture and rural life. I look forward to working with and for the members of Montana Farmers Union in the most important industry, agriculture. I've been blessed to have a rich, full agricultural life. I come from a long line of farmers, loggers, and ranchers. I've always known where my food came from and been thankful for the work and effort that went into producing, processing, and marketing it. I've worked hard to instill this same knowledge in my own children. As a family, we're at least 4 generations of FFA and 4-H members and leaders, helping to pass knowledge and appreciation of food, fiber, and natural resources on to future generations. I personally find it very disturbing that most US citizens today are 3 generations removed from the farm. Many have no idea where their food comes from. They don't understand the role of agriculture and agricultural research and do not understand the importance of money to maintain our agricultural infrastructure. Organizations like Montana's Farmers Union are important to have the voices of the agriculture industry heard and understood. It's critical that people understand where their food has come from and what it takes to get it to their plate. Please choose your food based on knowledge and facts. Eat local, buy local, support local whenever possible. Now, I had an advantage because I knew that I was going to be reading this for you, and I had a chance to write mine down. But most of this, I would tell you if you ask me who I was, why I was here, and why I do the work that I do. So we heard some of the ambassadors and staff introduce themselves from the June board meeting. They were not prepared introductions, but rather on-the-spot requests. Where have you been asked to introduce yourself and your farm or business? Were you prepared? Once you've crafted your elevator pitch, you'll have an introduction you're proud of. Let's listen to Eleanor Dutton, the MFU ambassador from Eastern Montana.
Hello, I'm Eleanor Dutton. I am from Nebraska originally, a Flatlander. As a political science major, I wanted something that would keep me interested and would let me sleep at night. And I realized that Montana Farmers Union, with their ag advocacy, their support for rural communities and small businesses and family farms, was really something worth working for. And even though I don't have an ag background or anything, I am a huge supporter for the education, the community development, and the legislative advocacy and support that MFU does. So my programming may not be like farm tours and everything like that, but the far out reading, the other contacts I have with the college kids in my area, other community development with the co-ops. I'm trying to build healthier communities so that family farms can have better communities to rely.
Eleanor's on-the-spot introduction was pretty spot on. So, step 1, who is she? It was easy. Eleanor Dutton, coming from Nebraska. She's a Flatlander. It's a little piece of fun information that might help listeners remember who she is. What's her why? She has a political science background and realized she shared values with Montana Farmers Union. Who's the us? Well, Eleanor doesn't have an ag background, but a huge heart for education, community development, and legislative efforts. She shared her personal development of the far out and waiting workshops and encouraged the us to be rural Montana communities. What's her call to action? Build communities so family farms can grow. Even when put on the spot, Eleanor was able to tell her who, why, us, and call to action. Let's listen to a couple other staff introductions and try to pick out their 4 steps.
So I'm Alice Miller. I do press relations work part-time from home in Guilford. I'm an East Coaster, moved west, fell in love with just this part of the world. Was in Montana, moved to Oregon, moved back to get married. And then his brother approached us about coming back to the family farm after our oldest was born. And so we picked up and we moved back to Guilford. Been there almost 9 years now. And for all the intangibles, like knowing that the work that you're doing is making a difference and you're building a life for your community and your family is beyond anything else that the world can offer. So we're just really thankful to be there and we really enjoy it. Really enjoy being able to put my skills as my background as a newspaper reporter to use working with prep outlets and then on our different publications, including the magazine and grassroots and the weekly boot up to share what you guys and the members are doing and working towards and sharing their curiosity and being able to turn that around into something that is useful for them to use to either advocate or to try something new themselves. And for members, it's really fun to be part of an organization that has that sort of contagious forward momentum. I explained it to someone one time, it's like we talk about agriculture and it's easy to sort of have the same conversation over and over again. But at Farmers Union, because the membership is so diverse, those hard conversations that maybe ask a question that people have been thinking, but they haven't been willing to ask in a certain circle are asked. And not only are they asked, but they're discussed. Things like new cooperatives and scholarships and grant funding for all these little, community projects come out of those discussions. And so it's not just talking, it's a tangible difference in Montana communities. So that's been really cool to be part of.
Were you able to identify Alice's 4 steps? Who? She's Alice Miller, the press relations specialist. Wants rural Montana to know the work that they're doing makes a difference. Why? She's using her skills to advocate for and with members' stories, which has a contagious forward momentum. She calls the membership of Montana Farmers Union to continue to have a hard conversation and questions and discussions that result in tangible differences. She hit all 4 of the steps, even when put on the spot. Let's listen to Samantha.
Howdy, everyone. My name is Samantha Ferret. I'm from Broward County, from Toston, Montana. Born and raised there, actually. 4th generation Montana agriculturalist. My great grandfather started farming when he immigrated from Germany at age 16, and we've always had hogs and cattle on the place. So I actually grew up a pig farmer. And now my parents still have this small hog farm just 3 miles from where my husband and I now have a cow-calf operation, raising registered limousine cattle and putting up our own hay for our animals. I am educated. I went to school to be a teacher. I'm really interested in this education thing that you talked about at the meeting, which I didn't understand was a paid position and the ambassador position. I thought it was just like, or I'm gonna go out and teach people about I just can't see, because that's what I've always been passionate about, whether I realized it or not. So finally, in my piece, I figured out where I should be and what I should be doing. I should be raising livestock to the best of my ability, sustainably. And yes, I'm getting my husband to do some regenerative grazing practices. Got it. So exciting. And to educate people for my passion, which is agriculture and advocating for the family farm and ranch. So I love Farmers Union for the networking, the support system. This really feels like a true family. And I am so, so grateful for being a part as a member and as an ambassador team.
Who? Samantha Ferret, a 4th generation Montanan. She grew up as a pig farmer. She's interested in education and advocacy, and her passion is raising livestock to the best of her ability and sustainably, and educating about that work. From these examples, you can see we all have a story. How we use the story can help build forward momentum and paint a real picture of agriculture. Whether you're like Skylar and know that if you eat, agriculture concerns you, or maybe you can relate to one of our multi-generational farm families like Rachel, Carissa, Mary, or Samantha, you have a story to tell. There are many Montanans, especially women, who fell in love with the Montana lifestyle and married into agriculture like Alice, or you fell in love with Montana communities like Eleanor, and have very different but equally as impactful stories to tell. Formulate your elevator pitch. Develop the key points to your story and use your voice to advocate for agriculture. It is truly all about being in that brave space. There will be an opportunity at the Montana Farmers Union Convention, October 17th through 19th in Whitefish, to tell our Montana Farmers Union family story. This story is a tapestry of stories over multiple generations, families, and lifestyles. I've added a story writing worksheet to the show notes that you can use to help write your story and bring it to convention so that you can record it for the podcast. Regardless of who you are or how you're involved in agriculture, what is your story? Develop your who, why, us, and call to action as an elevator pitch, and maybe even into a longer story sharing your passion. Use your voice to tell the story of Montana farm, family, ranches, and the greater story of the agriculture industry. Montana Farmers Union Lunch and Learn podcast is a resource for agricultural producers, support industry, and consumers. Join MFU today and make your voice heard advocating for family farms, ranches, and rural communities. Visit MontanaFarmersUnion.com, MFUMT on Instagram, or Montana Farmers Union on Facebook to see events and opportunities.